Hello and welcome to Champions in Conversation on International Women's Day. I'm here with Georgia Hall. She won the 2018 Open Championships. So, when did you start playing golf?
I started when I was 7 years old and my dad took me to the local driving range and I just loved trying to make contact with the ball and I've loved it ever since and very lucky to call this my job.
Do you still play with your dad?
No, we haven't played together since I was like 12 or 13 years old, but he always helped me growing up and went around me everywhere watching in tournaments and caddying for me a few times.
Yeah. Do you feel the pressure playing in front of him and watching?
No, I mean, I really like just having the support and when I'm in other countries and the time zones are different and, you know, middle of the night in England, he's always up watching and it's just really nice to, like, when I finish a round to have him on the other end of the phone. And obviously I'm away quite a lot from my friends and family, so it's really nice to have like that close-knit team around me.
Yeah, that's something we find quite difficult because we all have travel for work as well. And it'd be quite hard having to manage friends and family at home while being away in different time zones.
Yeah, and living out a suitcase, not having home comforts, home food, things you know around you, people you know, can be hard sometimes, but you get to travel the world and meet a lot of interesting people, which I'm very grateful for.
So what have been some of the biggest challenges?
I think some challenges growing up personally for my family was not being able to afford to go to golf tournaments. That was hard, especially when seeing other players were able to go as an amateur. Obviously, we don't get a lot of funding or support. You have to pay for your own travel expenses, entry fees, stuff like that. So I think that was definitely a challenge. And obviously now I'm professional and I can make money and do this as a job and make a living from it, that I don't have that problem anymore. But I think that it is hard for youngsters and families, as golf is a very expensive sport. Even to buy golf clubs costs a lot. So I think that's something that I will try and help going forward as a role model to maybe youngsters in the UK to hopefully help them growing up.
And do you think there's kind of more sponsorship available for women? Because obviously it's International Women's Day, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that'd be amazing. I think a lot of, as a professional, media coverage is very important for us to showcase our talent and to show that we can play golf to a very high standard and we're much more interesting than people think, like to play compared to the men as well. And I think a lot more people can relate to us as we don't hit it 300 yards. We hit it more like a good male amateur would. So they would be in the same place as the fairway as we probably would. And I think we have a lot of personality, especially on the LPGA tour and the LET tour.
Yeah. So one of the things we find definitely, so in my line of work is we do a lot of, well, it's all technology work. And obviously it's heavily kind of male dominated. There are huge numbers of women kind of being increased in the workplace. And we're finding that they have different opinions, different approaches, different ways of doing things. Is that the same with golf?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think as athletes, everyone performs differently, acts differently, thinks differently as well. There's lots of different personalities out on tour coming from all different areas of the world, which is very interesting for sure. And I think it's nice that, social media is a big part of what we do as well, when we can share not only our professional lives, but personal lives on there, and people that never get to meet us can see what we're about and our interests outside of golf. And I think that's very big for things like sponsorships and companies to know more about us as not only professionals, but people.
Yeah. And do you find yourself kind of mentoring other golfers or younger players that are starting up? Or
I know that there was a girl that I played golf with a couple of times last year that have recently won a LET event, Lily, and I know that she's kind of rising and she's a lovely person, lovely girl as well. And I just try and be an inspiration, just like I had when I was younger, 10, 11, 12. I think it's very important to have those role models to look up to and to make you strive to want to be like. I'm only kind of, I think, maybe at the halfway stage of my career, or even I'd say first half maybe, but I still want to try and be a role model for those coming up and hopefully have more golfers from the UK playing in future.
We do a lot of mentoring and helping people kind of overcome the challenges that they continue to face in kind of the workplace. And I've definitely throughout my career had mentors and coaches, and I now mentor kind of junior women, helping them try and reach their potential. So it's a good kind of model
to have.
Yeah. Going back to some of the challenges, so this year, what's been the kind of biggest career challenge for you?
I think last week, for example, in Singapore, we had a lot of rain delays, and that's something you can experience as a professional. And I haven't quite experienced that many, and a lot of early starts and jet lag and the heat, for example. So there are a lot of things because we play around the world. So we always have to take into consideration a lot of different factors.
What do you do for preparing to play in different climates and things?
I have a sun umbrella, which I need to try and use more of because that actually deflects the sun. Just other things like that, really. My caddy, who carries my bag and helps me with yardages, things like that, and advice. He bought a little air fan out on the course, just things like that to help, and obviously electrolytes in your drink to make sure that you're staying hydrated. I think hydration in heat is the most important thing you can do to make sure you have enough energy and feeling okay on the way around.
So one of the things I find definitely with my work is we spend a disproportionate amount of time preparing for a kind of 1 hour meeting, a 1 hour presentation, and you can never prepare enough for what's going to kind of come in that meeting, or the questions you're asking, those sorts of things. And I assume you have the same for that. How much kind of time do you spend preparing and training for each of the tournaments versus the time actually playing?
Yeah, a lot of people don't see the time us as players spend preparing for events. I think especially in off-season, which is November to January, February, we spend a lot of time preparing our golf clubs, for example, making sure they're the right fit for us, testing other equipment to see if we can better our performance, the golf balls, the shafts we use in our golf clubs, just things like that, really. And it takes a lot of time, and we have monitors to see, how far we kind of hit the ball with certain clubs, and the spin rate, the height it goes, things like that can be quite technical, and it can take a good few weeks to actually know what's best for you, and not just the numbers but how you feel hitting the ball as well. And golf is a lot about confidence you have before you even step up to the ball. So our equipment is 70% of performing well.
So obviously women's sport is making the headlines with the Lionesses winning the European Cup and the Tour de France Femme for the first time last year. Do you think now is the time for women's sport?
Yeah, 100%. I think it keeps growing every year, and Lionesses doing what they did last year made headlines everywhere. And even in, I had players come up to me on tour, and they're hearing about it, not even from England. So I think it was massive, especially football in the UK. And I think any women's sport doing well and succeeding deserves to get the media coverage that we're getting. And for golf as well, I think from when I turned pro, it's way better than it ever was, and especially in the UK. And when we have the AIG Women's Open, they show it a lot more now on the BBC, which is great to see.
Yeah, I actually saw that Sky have promised that they will show as much of the women's golf as possible this year as well.
Yes, I know, yeah. And, I think we deserve that, and especially having, really strong players from the UK as well. Not just, obviously Dame Laura Davis was amazing and great for our sport as well. And we have 3 or 4 now doing well, and we kind of compete against each other, which is a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll get a lot of crowds that week.
And obviously you got an MBE for services to sport. What was that like?
It was a bit surprising. I came home from 3 or 4 weeks on tour, and a letter was just where I was living in my apartment. And I remember opening it thinking, no, this is not real. Next year I went to the Buckingham Palace with a few of my close family and received the medal, and it was a really special memory for me. And I think it was just really great for the game of golf, especially women's golf, just to be recognised in that way. So I hear you're a bit of an athlete. Tell us about your sport.
So I've always been into sport, and I played hockey and tennis and all the kind of normal things at sport. But more recently I've taken up a bit of running, giving that a...
Wow. And I hear you've done some marathons.
Yeah, so I did London last year and was lucky to qualify again to do it this year. So I'm going to give it another shot.
And is that in the summer months? Or?
April.
Oh, not long.
Yeah, I've got 7 weeks.
How do you feel you're preparing?
So far, I think it's going okay, but there's a lot of dedication, a lot in
I bet.
training.
So what would you say have been the major challenges in your career?
Oh, there've been quite a lot. I think the main ones are around so at the moment I work in sales, so it's always trying to close that deal and the challenges you face, because obviously everybody wants things for less money and higher quality. It can be very difficult when you spend lots of time working on a deal or a proposal, and then ultimately the client says, no, that's not what I want, or they want something completely different. You have to go back to the drawing board. So I always find that quite challenging. The other things I found challenging in my career are the kind of constant trying to go for promotions, how you kind of progress up the career ladder, and understanding what the next job entails and how you're going to get there is always quite difficult.
So how have you felt being a woman in the workplace with other meetings and things like that?
Yeah, I work in technology, so it's a hugely male-dominated industry, so there can be a lot of challenges. But I think as a woman, you bring a different perspective to a lot of meetings. The way just tactically women think is very, very different, and the way they behave. So I think I have used that to my advantage throughout my career. So how important is the role of sponsorship in these sorts of tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly important. It's what makes a tournament, really. And it's so important for us players to have sponsors ourselves. But no, for the tournament, it attracts the best players in the world, of course, having bigger prize fund. The AIG Women's Open has increased the last 3 years. Now it's over 7 million. So I think it's just getting better and better every year, and anything us players can do to improve that. And I think that, other companies kind of competing against each other as well just help elevate the game and elevate majors we have and other tournaments going forward. So we've seen a massive improvement. Thank you very much, Georgia. We are so proud to be sponsoring the AIG Women's Open this summer, and we really look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.